This is Inspiring Careers with your host, Ingrid Centurion. We're going to talk about fascinating technologies that will impact your future. Meet inspiring entrepreneurs and people that are making huge differences in the community and around the world. We're going to share career and life lessons of inspiration and success. Our mission is to inspire our viewers to make a better life for themselves by sharing our stories, our interviews, and documentaries. Please stay tuned as we have incredible guests coming up. Today we have Carrie Pasquarello with us. She is a victim advocate responsible for confidential crisis counseling and advocacy. She is instrumental in providing support and resources related to victims' trauma and recovery. Her work on gender violence and prevention has been widely published and includes distribution to U.S. embassies throughout the world. She spent more than a decade in a diplomatic capacity working throughout Europe and Asia. Carrie served with the U.S. Department of State in a variety of positions, including assistant to the U.S. ambassador, assistant to the deputy chief of mission, assistant to the economic counselor, and with the Community Liaison Office. Carrie is multilingual and possesses an extensive cultural literacy developed from her 12 years overseas and her travel to more than 35 different countries, including high-threat locations in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Thank you so much for being with us today, Carrie.
Thank you very much for having me, Ingrid.
What we're going to cover today is so important to students and people all around the world. I want you to tell us all about, first, Global Secure Resources and the company that you founded.
Very much. Yes, I co-founded Global Secure Resources with our key strategies of preventing victimization, which is so important for all of our travelers visiting new locations every single day. We do this by our development with our individual threat assessment plan, our student safety assessment, which we cover 15 critical points everybody should know before they go. We do this for individual travelers, solo women travelers, a lot of students that are going abroad for studying for the first time. We also work with businesses and getting their business travelers prepared for travel. Now, the strategies of preventing victimization can be used not only overseas, but if you're in Los Angeles or New York or Florida.
Tell me about how you started Global Secure Student. That's specifically for students that travel overseas.
Right. So overseas, my children did a lot of studying overseas. They were educated in Rome and also Bangkok, participated in many study abroad programs. But I'll talk about one specific study abroad program my daughter was going on. It was to Egypt. And we were living over in Thailand at the time, and she came home with this great information about this program she wanted to be a part of. And we said, well, that sounds great. Let's get the information. And of course, the brochure was, there's beautiful pictures, there's all sorts of great things they'll be doing, but there wasn't any information about safety. And so my husband and I went up to the school and said, okay, we'd like to know where they'll be staying, who will be in charge of this program, what boat will they be traveling up the Nile. And the school was shocked. They said that we were the first parents to ever ask these in-depth questions. And that just made me think, why is that? And oftentimes it's because parents are releasing all their hopes of their safety for their child to the school. So they're letting the school take care of it. They think that they have it all covered. However, that is not the case in that we've seen over the years. So oftentimes schools will also have a third party involved. So the third party provider will come in and take the students from the school on these trips. And so nobody really understands who's in charge of safety, what are their emergency management plans, who's in charge. So after getting all the details, it took a number of weeks. We had sufficient evidence that she was going to be on a safe trip. Plus, we had a backup plan because this is how we are. We had somebody over in Egypt that if there was a catastrophic event, they were about 20 minutes away from her during her whole during her whole trip.
And how long was her trip?
Her trip was a week. So it was called Weeks Without Walls. So on this trip, something happened. One night, somebody came to her room in her hotel and knocked on the door and said that they were there to fix her air conditioner. And thank God we sent her with every type of strategy that she could use to keep herself safe. She called down to the front desk to confirm. They said to her, we didn't send anybody. So right there, that was a catastrophic event prevented from happening because of her strategies that she had in place. Criminals use cold call techniques all the time. They'll knock on a hotel door or a house door, and if you open it, you can be robbed, raped, or worse. And so by the fact that she had a strategy to call the front desk just to confirm, she was able to eliminate that issue. And that is really where it all started. Our students traveling should have the same amount of safety in place that my daughter had. And that's what we really wanted to give to others, a peace of mind and having students be able to really participate in their own safety.
You recently had a client that sent her daughter to Peru, and she had a wonderful testimonial how you prepared her because she was a stressed out mom. Her daughter is going to Peru. And so I wanted to share a wonderful response I received at the end of September. I'd asked a client whose daughter was traveling out of the country for the first time and went to Peru, how she liked GSR, travel consultation preparation, and ITAP. And I wanted to read this so our viewers see the great things that you're doing. Oh my goodness, yes, I am in shock at the detail you provided. This was much more than I could have ever hoped for, and I'm eternally grateful. Honestly, I feel like I owe you so much. You've been my only piece in this whole situation. I really didn't know what we would have done without you. Crystal and I both learned many new strategies that I'm already using, and I haven't even read The Gift of Fear yet. I am sure we will both use these skills in the future. I began telling people about your company and the life-saving services you provide after our very first conversation. Not just my friends and coworkers, but anyone remotely connected. When we made the appointment for Crystal's vaccinations, the company asked how we heard of them, and I referenced Global Secure Resources directly. Not because you mentioned them by name, but honestly, I had no idea where to get these kinds of shots. As it turns out, a clinic was on the way. So yes, I am thrilled with everything, and I will do whatever I can to promote your cause and services. I mean it, you are a lifesaver, and I can't wait to actually meet you and hug with you and gratitude. She hasn't even met you, and she wants to hug you.
Right.
But I just wanted to read that because I think that's really powerful on how so many people just don't know about all the things that they can be doing to be more alert, more vigilant.
So we always had a plan for whatever was going to occur, no matter where we were. And civil disorder is just something that happens when you're traveling occasionally. And we can see this right now with what's happening in France and the yellow vests. So we always knew that when civil disorder happened, you try to stay away from any type of protest because it can get very dangerous. We had, at the time, tanks coming down our streets and a lot of military men in the streets, gunfire, there were smoke bombs, they were burning tires. It was really a really chaotic type of time in Thailand. And this has happened before in Thailand. This wasn't anything new, but if you're a tourist for the first time, it's shocking. So we sort of knew what we were up against, and shortly after this video was finished, we were evacuated out of the country. But once again, my children, I had a 5th grader at the time, 9th grader, and also an 11th grader, and at the time, they weren't so stressed because they knew that mom and dad had a plan in place for our safety. And we would have backup plans to our plans. And that is one of the key strategies that we always learned with the State Department, the Justice Department, was if you had a higher risk area, you just had to have more backup plans. And you'd have a plan in place to go to, because this all wraps back into mental health issues. And if you're over in a foreign country, thousands of miles away from your support system, you're on your own. And for us to be able to give you some key strategies that you can take away and use at a moment's notice, that's what it's all about.
Now, the first day I met you, you told me about this book, The Gift of Fear. And our friend there said she hasn't read this book yet. I just started reading the first few pages of it, and it's intense.
It is
And
very intense.
this is what you teach.
Galvin de Becker is an amazing, amazing writer. But the gist of Gift of Fear is we have all been given a gift of fear. So if you feel fear, this is the time for you to react. Not to wait, but react. And one of the interesting things that he speaks to in this book is we shouldn't be afraid of what ifs. Go live your life, go travel, go see the world, have a plan in place. And if you feel fear, if you get a red flag, you need to react immediately, because that is the gift. The gift is the feeling that you get. So I've used the Gift of Fear was a wonderful book that I came across a number of years back. But even before this book, this is what I lived my life on, was not to be fearful of what is out in the world, live your life, but if you have a sense, you have to listen to it, and this could actually save your life.
You've come out in a lot of publications and news articles. You've been quoted and sourced in multiple different publications. Which are some publications you want to talk about that you're really proud of, that you've come out in? I've got a laundry list here, but I know that you had a few that you wanted to talk about.
Well, I would start by the Women's Stats Project, which is an amazing resource for anybody trying to find out information about gender violence and women globally. So it's a wonderful site to go to. And so I had a couple publications with the Women's Stats Project. Also, Foggy Bottom Rambles, which is a part of the Community Liaison Office, the Family Liaison Office that's centered down in Washington, D.C. They used my publications, and it went out to all the embassies in the world, which was really quite exciting for me. And one of those you can actually find on our website, or also on my Medium that I do the writing with, and it's called The 5 C's of Safer Travel. So it's really a wonderful thing to read about.
And you also write publications. You told me about the 3 Ps.
Yeah,
this is very important.
Right. So oftentimes when I get together with groups and talk about how to really put your safety first, I talk about the 3 Ps, the 2 Rs, and the 5 Cs. And so really when we're looking at the 3 Ps, it's proactive, prepared, and protected. And so what I really want any traveler to do is to start thinking about how are you going to get yourself prepared. That's the first step. And the next step would be doing all your research and finding out and following me on my 15 key credible issues you should be focusing on, which is the crime, it's the terrorism, the civil disorder, the road safety, your medical issues, what types of vaccinations should you have. So there's a whole process of getting yourself prepared. And then you have to be protected. And protected is when you get evacuation medical insurance. It's completely different from your travel insurance that will, refund your ticket if you miss a flight. This is actually if you're sick over in a foreign country, you have to be seen at a hospital, or perhaps it's a catastrophic injury and you need serious help and you might need to be evacuated from the country. This type of insurance will help you with that. And also it does repatriation, which is another issue we should talk about one day.
So many people travel and they just are looking for the cheapest flight. They're not doing any of this preparation.
Right.
And
I would have to say,
I just thinking about my trip to Costa Rica.
Oh.
I mean, it was a great trip.
Yeah.
And there was some beautiful country, but I you know, we get lazy. We didn't do the threat assessments, and we were going to resort locations, so we neglected those things.
Well,
but it's something that's really important,
even,
especially, it was just my husband and I,
right.
but if you have family and you have your children, you want to keep not only yourself safe, but you want to keep your family safe.
Right.
And that's how you came up with Global Secure Family?
Yeah, so we...
Because...
Yes, we want to keep the family safe. We want to keep all of our travelers safe. And so one of the things down in Costa Rica, what we've seen a lot is drownings. People sometimes don't think about really checking the water to make sure that there's no riptides, but they have high numbers of riptides down there. And unfortunately, we lost a student that's part of Protect Students Abroad. Their nonprofit was started because of a student that was killed down in Costa Rica because of rip currents. And once again, within our individual threat assessment plans, our student safety assessments, we talk about swim safety and how you should be able to spot a rip and be able to break the grip of the rip. And these are key strategies that all of us need to have. Just this, the first 6 months of 2018, we've had over 300 American citizens killed overseas. And out of those numbers, 200 were drownings.
Wow.
This is outrageous. We really need to focus on swim safety for all of our travelers, but specifically for our younger travelers. They need to know that they need to have special ways of being able to swim and have a great time and come home safe.
Student brought assessment here, the book that you brought with us.
Yes.
Let's talk about what
so
you provide.
And this particular one is for China. And interesting, well, sad story about China. We had a school that took students to China not too long ago. And they didn't look into the environmental hazards of the area, so they didn't realize that there was Japanese encephalitis. And what happened was one of the students contracted Japanese encephalitis, and now it has completely changed her life and her family's life. She needs 24-hour care for the rest of her life, and actually it went through a lawsuit and they won $42 million.
Wow.
And so when we talk about duty of care, our schools, our universities need to be prepared and be able to protect our children going overseas. And the first way you can do this is by researching and finding out exactly what the hazards are. We see oftentimes people not wanting to talk about the risks because it might be too scary. People might not go, and it's a billion-dollar industry, study abroad programs, right? So, but my philosophy, our philosophy with Global Secure Resources is you need to know the risks to avoid the risks. Let's just share all the information, make sure everybody's ready and prepared to protect their life. And so with our individual Safe Student Abroad assessment, we'll go through the 15 critical things that you should know before you go. And they're all individualized. So they're for your lodging, they're for your trip, they're for everything you will be doing. And that's why it's so great to get an individual threat assessment plan or a student safety assessment as a gift for anybody that's traveling.
Well, that's a great idea.
Right?
Keep them safe. I mean,
the gift of safety.
You want them to go on their trip and you want them to come back.
Right, and that's the key.
That's
a
wonderful gift. This is also a wonderful gift that you brought here.
Yes.
Explain this, because this is really awesome.
Yeah, so we always go over criminal elements in our daily lives when we're traveling. And so scams are a billion-dollar industry overseas. So people have the job of stealing from people. That's what they do. They go to tourist areas and they steal passports, they steal wallets, they try to get your luggage, and they have very, very clever ways of doing it. But this is called a stash band. And I love this because you just slip it on like a sweatpants underneath your clothes, and you can put your passport, you can put money, and a credit card. And one of the really great things is if your luggage and your purse are stolen, you still have money, credit card, and your passport, and you can get a taxi, get a hotel, and get the heck out of the country if you choose. Now, if you have your passport stolen, you will be going to the police department. You're going to be filing a police report. You're going to have to get a copy of it. Then you're going to have to make your way over to the embassy or the consulate to have another passport made up for you. Now, let's say you're a few days away from the consulate or the embassy. Now you have to take a train, get to a new city, get a new hotel. So you're wasting valuable time and your precious money. to replace what you could keep underneath your clothing.
So would you recommend everyone in the family carry their own? Because I know a lot of times I've traveled and one person might carry everybody's.
Right,
just
right.
in case,
Yeah.
right?
So that's what
So
happened
what's
often
your
with me.
idea
I
on
would
that?
have 5 passports, and so I would be the keeper of the passports often. So, so this is a wonderful way. So whoever's in charge, they need to have it under their clothes. And like I say, if you have your luggage taken, your
right.
your purse taken, and, you know, you can still go on with your trip, which is really important. And just an example, in Rome in 2017, we had close to 1,400 American passports stolen. Wow. So it's a highly valued item. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know it can get hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to purchase one on the black market.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. So what are they doing with them? They're selling them for money.
Selling them for money.
And now there's someone out there traveling the world as you?
Or if they're exchanging pictures, or what, you know, maybe they're doctoring them up. But this is big business, as you can see. This is one little snapshot of one city, Rome. How many are taken?
I was reading some articles about OSAC reports and tragic trend stories. You have another document with us today on the number of Americans that have passed away on travel. This one picture you said you had here, how many we've lost this year. Studied,
So
these are studying abroad.
That's 2017.
2017, okay, but
So-
just studying abroad. These are students studying in other countries, in college or in high school?
Yes, college and high school both.
Okay. I want to talk about this because this is important.
So, and this is why we're really pushing for new legislation to come so that we can start counting the numbers of student deaths, injuries, and assaults overseas. It's really important. I'm collaborating with a few nonprofits. One's Protect Students Abroad, and one's Depart Smart, which was called Clear Cause before. These 2 nonprofits were started because of the death of students, Tyler, Ravi, and Thomas. And each of them have a tragic, tragic story. And their mothers wanted to go forth and do something about it and try to, you know, encourage travel, but make sure that the students are doing it safe. And the problem, one of the largest problems, was they weren't prepared. They didn't have plans in place, and these were preventable deaths. And so Protect Students Abroad started counting the numbers of students that have died overseas, and we're getting close to 200 students. This is a really important work for me to try to give back, because my children studied abroad, saw the world, had an amazing time, and because of our safety, strategic ways of traveling, we all came back safe and alive. And this is not what's happening with some of the students. And nobody can find the actual statistics to find out if a program is safe or not. And that is outrageous to me. So by starting up at our State House, I went and talked with Senator Sal DiDomenico, and right now his legislative director is drafting some new legislation that will be filed in January. So I'm very excited about this. We need more legislators to get on board with it. We need to get it passed. And this is just one small step, because what we'll do with this new legislation is we'll start counting the injuries, deaths that have occurred overseas. And then we can get the data-driven analysis to be able to figure out how many are dying in this way, how many are dying in that way, and then we can put in like ways to keep them safer. So if I look in this book, and I can tell you that there's a lot of student drowning. So if we had a program in each of these schools that are taking their kids out to Costa Rica or to Israel or anywhere around the world, and then they had to actually look at breaking the grip of the rip and making sure that they understand the powers of the ocean, then we can have more kids coming back alive. And that's what we need. But we can't really do it until we have our data-driven analysis. And it really is one state at a time. In Minnesota, they actually started some legislation there. And so the first state is starting to count these deaths and these injuries. And so I'm praying that Massachusetts will be next, and then we'll just start ticking off the states and get everybody involved, and then we can actually get some federal legislation on the books. And it's because study abroad is over $1 billion industry and it's unregulated. So how, as a parent, how do we find the safest place for our kids? Our kids are the most important people in our lives, right? We would do anything for them. We need the state and the federal level to step up and start helping us keep our kids safe. And so that's one of my passions.
That's incredible. I can see your passion. And another thing that was so important that you provide, because this is your life, you're up on all these things. GSR recommended in one of the reports I was reading why there are so many blackouts in certain countries.
Right, are you talking about alcohol
Yes.
and blackouts?
Yes, and this is so important.
Yes.
Tell us about that, what's going on, because people go to other countries and they're drinking a lot, right? They don't know what's going on.
Right.
And if there's a blackout, can you tell
Yes.
us a little bit about that information? I
Yes.
thought that was very, very interesting. Most people don't think about these things.
Right. So we are seeing a number of people drugged with their drinks. But what's interesting, and I'll look at Mexico for a moment. In Mexico, we have a high number of alcohol that isn't being regulated, which it's being homebrewed, which it has higher levels of other chemicals that creates blackouts faster. So unfortunately, this is being sold out of bars or hotel bars or resort areas. And so I always say, if you want to really mitigate your risk, only drink beer and open it yourself. I mean, then you can know that that was actually made in a facility, right? Now, these bars that are serving this alcohol, there's been so many blackouts, and what ends up happening, if they're able to get to a hospital, they can get some treatment, but we've seen a lot of death happen because of this. And we have a new lawsuit that's just coming forward right now against a resort, and it was because a daughter and a son, it was a family that went to Mexico, and the two kids went down to the pool, had a drink each, and right after she drank it, she passed out in the pool and drowned. And her brother ended up on life support. And at the hospital, and it was very devastating. So if you can just Google blackouts in Mexico and see some serious sad data about this. But really what's important is reducing your alcohol consumption. A lot of times what we're seeing, a number of, and this is just a trend that happens, criminals look for drunk tourists. They're the easiest target. So they could steal from you, they could assault you, and once you come out of your blackout, you're not going to remember anything. So you're not going to get very far with any type of legal action. And I always talk with our groups about the legal action, because if you are a victim of crime overseas, most likely you're not going to stay in the country to actually pursue the legal aspects. You're not going to have 2 years to spend in a foreign country trying to have a case be heard. So this is why it's so critical to prevent the victimization from happening. And that's why our key strategies are focused on preventing victimization, doing what we can to keep ourselves safe and out of those situations.
And these things happen all the time, and it's not just in Mexico with the alcohol.
No,
I'm just thinking of all these other places around the world where
it's everywhere.
Exactly.
And
everything that you're doing is just so great, not only for travel abroad, for right here in our own town. Sometimes, women, going out or traveling alone anywhere in whatever neighborhood, they're a risk, and that's why I really wanted to have you on the show today. You're doing amazing things. And I need to have you back on again, because we have to talk more about strategies and techniques